Hey there, folks. My name is Dan Barrett. I'm joined here by Simon Foster. We do a podcast each week. It's called Screen Watching. We discuss the things that are on screens and the way that we watched it. Simon Foster, question apropos of nothing. Something that's been on my mind a little bit lately. Predator.
Oh
There's
boy.
great films, and I saw the new trailer for the new Hulu Disney Plus star, whatever we want to call it, Predator film. It's called Prey, which I believe is a prequel. Interestingly, because it's a prequel, it's set obviously pre-Schwarzenegger and pre all the other Predators and Alien versus Predator
300
films and
years
whatnot.
ago. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's basically Predator versus some Comanche Native Americans.
Yeah, it looks fascinating. August 5.
Here's what's interesting, Simon.
Yep.
When the film gets released, because it's going to be on a streaming platform, one of the language tracks available is going to be Comanche.
That is so good, as it should be. That's a great way to do it.
Like, I don't know how many native speakers there are of that, like these days, but kind of cool.
It's interesting because the trailer's in English, like the scene clips they've shown are in English. So I'm wondering how they.
Oh, it'll be a dubbed thing the same way that other foreign language tracks happen.
Wow, great.
Yeah,
that's very exciting. I'm very excited to see it. Huge Predator fan. Well, Predator 1. I know your thoughts on Predator 2.
Which is, it's awesome. Go on.
So yes, I'm very excited.
The case for Predator 2, Danny Glover, check. Jake Busey, check.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gary Busey, not Jake Busey.
Yes, Gary.
Jake Busey came back for the most recent Shane Black Predator film, which I think was called Predators.
Yeah, or just Predator, and Predators was the Adrian Brody one.
Oh yeah, that might be right.
Yeah, and
anyway, I think the overall message we've got here is how good's Predator?
Why don't we get on with the show for a while?
Yeah, sure.
It's not like TV only better.
Television, teacher, mother,
Secret lover. That's it? That's your movie?
Well, I said that I had an idea for it.
Gosh, there's a lot going on when I open a podcast talking about Predator.
I know, and it is there's a lot going on this week. There's all sorts of stuff.
Actually, there's a lot happening.
Yeah, we've got a very busy show this week. A whole bunch of reviews to get through. I'll be talking the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. I'll also be looking at a doco called The Janes and a new Adam Sandler sports movie, which that'll really divide people. It's called Hustle. It's on Netflix.
Yeah, and because it's a week, there's going to be a new Marvel product out. So I'm going to be talking about Ms. Marvel. There's also, what else have I got here? Only one of my all-time favorite shows. It's called For All Mankind. That's got season 3 dropping. And then also, I'm not going to do a review of this, but we're going to have a bit of a chat about the 3rd season of the return of one of my other favorite shows. It's called Evil. And we're going to talk about that and why audiences freaking aren't getting on board and watching that show.
I don't know.
Boy, that bothers me.
You love it, and when I saw For All Mankind and Evil drop in the same week, I thought, oh, Dan is in the zone. He is going to be all over this. And me with Dinosaurs, I managed to sort of swing a midsection, the famed middle bit of screen watching, into a look at many of the great dinosaurs in movies and TV shows that aren't Jurassic Park films, basically. So that'll be fun to talk about.
Yeah. In regards to my favorite show, sorry, we're doing dinosaur impersonations now.
That was a Foxtel and a Barretratrix. Boy.
Yeah. Well, suddenly things got very asterisks all of a sudden there. With bad Latin. What were we talking about a second ago? Pre-Jurassic Park. My favorite show's launching in the same week. You know what? It also coincides with the Barrett birthday week. So, this is all, it's all coming a cropper for me.
Who had a birthday? You had a birthday this week.
Well, did you have a birthday? No. So obviously it was me. You got a 50% chance here.
I don't know. See, since you dropped off Facebook, that's how I keep up with people's birthdays. So I didn't know it was your birthday. So I do apologize, and many happy returns, Dan Barrett. How old are you now?
It hasn't been my birthday yet. It'll still crop up on your Facebook, I'm sure, at some point. It's coming.
All right. Are you an agent?
It's coming. And how old am I? Let's just say that I can legally now fight in the army.
You're much older than that. You can legally start wars now, is what really happening. Yeah.
I can legally make excuses for not being in the army.
Oh boy, these afternoon pre-records, they go in all sorts of directions, don't they? Wow.
Boy, do they ever. But Simon, the place that we should probably start is with a little segment we do here where we do some reviews.
Yeah.
And we're going to kick off with a little thing called Jurassic World Dominion, if I got that name right. But first, let's play the sting.
It stinks.
Simon, last week I said that I was in ISO quarantine and that I'd be able to get out in time for Jurassic World Dominion.
Yes.
And I did. But here's what happens to me during quarantine. I read reviews for Jurassic World Dominion.
Right.
Not to go. Anyway, here's a clip.
Blue, you had a baby. That's impossible.
Hey, girl.
You look just like your mother.
I promise you, I am going to get her back.
Wow, I can't believe I gave that a miss. Simon, tell us about it.
All right, indulge me here. This is going to go on a bit, but I got plenty to say. This is the 6th Jurassic franchise film. It opens with a montage of evening news talking heads whining about how hard it's become to live with dinosaurs since they integrated themselves into human society. A promise of things to come that we glimpse at the end of 2018's Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Who names these films? The audience, rightfully expecting an opening that sets hearts pounding, like what Steven Spielberg did back in '93 with some ferns and a bunch of guys in high-vis helmets, is instead napalmed with information concerning the industrialization of genetic science and the government agency controlling the new dinosaur problem and blah, blah, blah. It is a very clumsy, very crappy opening to a summer blockbuster, but it does set the tone for the next 156 minutes to follow. Director Colin Trevorrow, I should say, then segues his already convoluted narrative into, of all things, a big bug movie. Genetically mutated locusts, as large and disgusting as house cats, are destroying crops all across America, except those planted by big pharma conglomerate Biosyn, a Monsanto-like corporation with designs on global food sector domination. Now, one problem that faces Jurassic World Dominion is the number of characters being juggled to see out the film's central gimmick, and that is uniting the key cast members from both Jurassic film eras in a trilogy-ending final chapter. Paleobotanist Ellie Sattler, played by Laura Dern, is called upon to bust open the big bug conspiracy, providing an entry point for OG everyman Alan Grant, Sam Neill, and Dr. Ian Malcolm, a returning Jeff Goldblum, has let his ethical firewall slide in the intervening years. He's now consulting for Biosyn CEO Lewis Dodgson, played by Campbell Scott. Now, of the Jurassic World ensemble, Dino Whisperer Owen, played by Chris Pratt, and his patented ironic blandness, and Claire, Bryce Dallas Howard, are now guardians for this mopey teen, Maisie Lockwood, played by Isabella Sermon. They live in the woods, sharing the wilderness with raptor heroine Blue. You heard her in the trailer there, and the calf called Beta. Now, when kidnappers take Beta for her black market value and Maisie for her bridging DNA strands, Owen and Claire set off in pursuit, bound for an unlikely but inevitable crossing of paths of the Jurassic heroes. So about now, you have every right to ask, you are going to have some dinosaurs in your dinosaur movie review? Hello? And like this review, prehistory's mighty beasts are shunted into the background of their own film series in Jurassic World Dominion. New species turn up, including an impressive beastie called Giganotosaurus, the biggest carnivore that ever lived, says Dr. Grant in one of many dog whistle moments for the franchise primed audience. But Trevorrow just drops them into the path of our heroes who dodge them with scant regard for their status as alpha predators. This endless parade of hoops through which to jump is mostly what the series is all about. The heroes travel from point A to point B, dino dodging the whole time. But even in the much maligned Jurassic Park 3, which finally casts off its worst of the franchise tag, the trek held some degree of menace, some imminent threat element that provided an often very basic but undeniable tension and sense of adventure. That never manifests in Jurassic World Dominion. It is a bloated 2.5-hour plod that is unforgivably dull and indefensibly misjudged. It's in wide release now. It's making money hand over foot, but with Top Gun Maverick setting a standard for how good legacy sequels can be, unfortunately, it is exactly the opposite with Jurassic World Dominion. This is how bad a sequel or franchise that overstays its welcome can get.
So here's what I don't understand about the Jurassic World Dominion film. It seems to be that they're like now trying to say this is going to be the end of the Jurassic Park like film story. And that seems unlikely. If this makes a lot of money, there'll be another Jurassic Park. So why even sort of play with that pretense? But also, it's not like it's been telling a consistent story through these 6 films. So I don't understand like what the motivation here, other than the fact that they had the Avengers movie make like $1 billion odd. And so they're like, you know what? We'll talk about this being the end of the franchise, even though it's clearly not. So why bother? And how is it story wise? Like, I don't get it. And I haven't even sold the idea it's the end of the franchise well as the audience. Like they just keep on mentioning it every so often. I'm like, oh, that's right. That's supposedly a thing. But it's not like anyone's really hanging out at this thinking this has been sold to us that this is the end of the franchise.
It was such a tenuous link that brought all these films together. It was a very tenuous link that linked Jurassic World with the Jurassic Park films. And initially Trevorrow and then J.A. Bayona with Fallen Kingdom, and now back to Trevorrow with Dominion. They've tried to create this sort of complicated mythology, this backstory involving genetic science and so on and so forth, and it just never sticks. There's no glue that holds any of this together, and it becomes so boring. At one point in this movie, I turned to the young lady that I saw the movie with, and I said to her, I just wish everyone in this film would shut up. There's so much talking, there's so much exposition coming out of all their mouths. I'm thinking, my God, you could fit 5 or 6 Jurassic Park scripts, the original film, into the script for this big bloated mess of a film. So it just made me realize, how slick and supremely clever it was what Spielberg did with the first film, and how easy he made it look, because making these films bigger just ends up pushing the dinosaurs into the background, the very uninteresting characters to the foreground, and they'll be happy to take our dollars, but boy, how they're going to come back from this to make a 7th film, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what? I haven't seen the box office for because it's currently Saturday afternoon as we record this. I haven't seen the box office updates, but I wouldn't be entirely surprised if the bad word of mouth on this one actually does put a pretty severe dent in a possible box office for it. It just doesn't feel like there's a lot of enthusiasm for this film out there.
Yeah, look, I think as we record this, it looks like it's going to hit about the 125 million opening weekend mark, so they'll be happy with that. But the big sort of percentage to see will be the second week drop. Once again, holding Maverick up as the new standard, a 33% drop for that film is almost unprecedented in its second week. They would have been happy with a 50 or 60% drop. So you can expect something upwards of 65% in terms of when word of mouth gets round on Dominion.
Well, I think Fallen Kingdom did about 145 for the opening weekend, so that's probably an interesting metric to keep in mind. Anyway, this one, I don't know, willing to give it a miss. But let's just end this one and talk about Jurassic Park 3 for a second. The much maligned Jurassic Park 3. Yep. I don't hate that movie. And also, a merciful 92 minutes long.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what I'm saying. And I didn't hate Jurassic Park 3. Joe Johnston directed it. He's one of my favorite sort of popcorn directors. I disliked Lost World a whole lot more than I disliked Jurassic Park 3. So my comment about it being losing its worst of the franchise tag was just pandering to the masses. I don't mind Jurassic Park 3 at all.
Honestly, I think for a Jurassic Park movie, anything that's like 90 minutes, that's exactly what the audience actually wants. They want to get in, see a whole bunch of dinosaurs, see a whole bunch of car chases, and then get out.
That's all you need. That's all you need. All right, let's talk the new Marvel entry, Miss Marvel.
Kamala. Another adventure shirt. Cute. She thinks I'm some kind of weirdo.
You are a weirdo. Boys, excuse me.
Yeah.
You're kind of on my shirt.
Sorry.
What? You're staring out the window in your little fantasy land.
Ms. Marvel is a spin-off of sorts of Captain Marvel. It's about a young up-and-coming superhero who costumes herself after her own hero, only she lacks the confidence to be a branded hero in her own right, adopting the moniker Ms. Marvel. And while that's a little bit cute and fun, there's something that seems so pointedly taking the title Ms. that feels very 1970s to me. And the 1970s feel especially key to this series. So it's not that the show is set in the 1970s, and far from it. This is a world where our hero, the titular Ms. Marvel, is texting her best friend, characters are using Alexa-like devices in the home, and there's a bristling between the familial expectations placed on the teenage gonna-be superhero, Kamala Khan, versus the place that she sees for herself as she nears adulthood. But there's something that feels very 1970s Spider-Man about this TV show. And visually, the show owes a huge debt to the recent Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse animated film, with special effects that are used to heighten small moments, along with text elements interwoven into the live-action backgrounds. But like the 1970s Spider-Guy, this is a really tangible, highly relatable teenage superhero where themes of power and responsibility loom large. This is as grounded a hero as you're going to get from a Marvel TV show, and it plays an absolute treat. A lot will be written about how the show represents the first Muslim Marvel superheroes to get her own show and how important that is for representation, yada, 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 yada. And that's certainly true, but what I actually think is far more compelling is that the show gets away with something that very few superhero shows and movies do. It keeps the world of Ms. Marvel feel very small and very grounded. It's relatable in a way that none of the rest of them really are. Actor Iman Vellani, she's got a great authenticity as Kamala Khan. She's not too adorable. She's not too spunky. She feels every bit on screen the gross and unpleasant teenager who's just generally kind of annoying to surrounding adults at this stage in life. And when superheroics are introduced to her world, it isn't as though she's meeting up with Captain America or Thor. It's because she wants to cosplay as Captain Marvel at a Avengers fan convention, and that's where she accidentally unleashes some actual powers that she inadvertently discovers that she has. So it's actually a little bit of a shame that Khan even gets superpowers, because there's something so engaging about watching this girl just getting by in life, lost in her own thoughts and disappointing her disapproving mother at every turn. With Ms. Marvel, you won't believe that a superhero can fly, but you will believe that a superhero can have a short attention span and be able to cut together a video for YouTube. And real talk, that's actually a more impressive feat.
It's exactly true. It is. Very sweet show, very cool looking show, a great collection of central characters, including that wonderful lead performance, and quite a creative way of presenting this new kind of Marvel hero. So am I going to go back and watch a whole lot more? Maybe, maybe not. It's clearly not aimed at me, but I can certainly appreciate what they're doing with it. If I was a 14-year-old girl, Muslim or POC or whatever, I'd be all over this. I think it's a really sweet, fun hour of television.
I mean, I don't think that you need to even identify that closely with Kamala Khan, because I think that she's got just generally relatable aspects to her character. It isn't even really about the fact that she's from a specific cultural background as much as she's just a teenager who happens to have this cultural background that she has to rebel against. But every teenager rebels against some sort of aspect of their family history or sense of self. So I don't think you really need to have that close connection with Kamala and her background to find any sort of relatability here. I think it's just right there as part of the DNA. Yeah. But that said, Simon, you tapped upon the real sort of issue, which is that you're too old for this show. I'm too old for this show. We're not the audience for this program. This is for teenagers. This is for young adults.
Yep.
It's for families with a young adult in their life to sit down and watch as a familial unit. And that audience will do perfectly fine with it. I sat down and watched this and thought, I've seen this story before. I don't really necessarily need to go through all these beats. So like you, maybe I'll tune in, maybe I won't, but that doesn't matter. For the audience this is for, it's going to suddenly play all get out. People are going to love this show. It's good. It's very charming. But again, it's not necessarily for us, but not everything needs to be.
Not everything needs to be, although everything should be, because we are screen watching.
Heck yeah.
Oh boy, let's change the tone considerably. A new documentary has hit Foxtel. It's called The Janes.
We were ordinary women trying to save women's lives, but
we were criminals. We were felons. For most of the nation in 1972, abortion was illegal.
We had to go underground.
The woman would be given the address to the front.
It was probably obvious to neighbors what was going on.
As the 60s became the 70s and American society was swept up in the spirit of social change, the nature and value of the rights of the individual became a cause worth fighting, even dying for, but not high on the new patriarchy's list of things worth fighting for were the rights of women, as depicted in this heartbreaking, enraging HBO documentary from directors Tia Lesson and Emma Pildes. and in particular, the rights that allowed women to have agency over their own bodies. Until the landmark Roe versus Wade case handed down by the US Supreme Court in January of '73, abortion was illegal across the USA. Women who sought to terminate unwanted pregnancies had to seek out backyard operations, many of them controlled by the mafia, or worse still, self-administer the act. Many women died, some as young as 14, on a scale that was truly shocking. The Janes were a group of young women, some revolutionary-minded campus activists, and some were new mums and housewives, and some were working-class girls from the poor side of town who defied the state legislature that outlawed abortion, the Catholic Church that condemned it, and the Chicago mob that was profiting from it, risking their personal and professional lives to help women in need. Using code names and fronts and safe houses to protect themselves and their work, they built an underground service for women seeking safe, affordable, illegal abortions. Their actions were both forceful acts of civil disobedience and deeply humanistic endeavors to aid people in desperate need. This remarkable film interviews many of the women and men for the first time on camera, revealing true social warriors whose actions changed the lives of an estimated 11,000 women. It's available on HBO in the US and via Foxtel Docos here in Australia. It is such a compelling story and an amazing slice of modern history that should be spoken of more often. It's called The Janes.
I'm going to shift gears and get our heads into the cloud for a little bit. Let's talk about the season 3 return of For All Mankind.
Massive dust storms obscured both landing sites. Years, even decades of planning comes down to this moment.
We're rising blind. Brace for impact.
Being first is what it's all about.
The biggest sleeper success story of the last few years has been For All Mankind. While a small handful of critics, such as yours truly, have been waving the atmosphere-free flag for All Mankind since the first season, the return of the show last year caught a lot more attention. It's still a little bit under the radar show, but it's very quickly finding more and more people who are coming around to the program. If you're yet to discover this gem of a show, the premise is that in the late 1960s, Russia were able to beat the US to landing a man on the moon by just a couple of weeks. That event caused a major divergence in what we know to be our history. The Cold War became focused on space travel, with both the US and Russia pumping more cash and resource into space than they did in real life. And it means that the technology advanced in alternative ways, and events in our culture played out differently. The Beatles ended up having a reunion. The 90s saw a woman beat out Clinton to become president, and man has not only colonized the moon, but in this season of the show, we're en route to the landing of people on Mars. Now, the main characters in the show are the men and women who drive the most change through NASA. They're astronauts, mission control scientists, bureaucrats, and friends and family of these people. Each season of the show jumps forwards to the next decade as we discover what's happening with our cast of characters. For All Mankind is essentially a high-stakes soap opera that lets us look to the skies and around the world that we stand in today and ask the question, what if? Now, with the third season of the show, the series has reached a really interesting stage. The stakes in the show have never been greater as we watch 3 teams of scientists battle it out to each become the first to land a person on Mars. And we follow the Americans at NASA, Russians, and then a third largely US-based corporate effort. But at the same time, the show itself, it actually has never felt smaller. A creative decision's been made to rigidly follow the same characters that we've largely been following since the first season. But that actually starts to make the show feel like it makes less and less sense generally as the decades go on. And why is the success in mankind's space endeavors all being achieved by these same 5 to 10 people? So, For All Mankind, it'd be a stronger show if it was actually more willing to sunset characters, along with the introduction of new characters as each season/decade passes. The promise of the show was never based on being able to follow what's seemingly a very specific space dynasty, as much as it is about following the exploration of who it is that we are and what we believe in if circumstances were different. That said, the third season of For All Mankind, it's still mostly very gripping. There's 2 story arcs in the first 8 episodes of the season. And just to note, the final 2 episodes weren't provided for review, which makes me suspect that something very big happens in those last 2 episodes. But look, the episodes that I have seen, all 8 of them, they are thoroughly gripping, and each one builds to a high-pressure, now-biting thrill that's just as great as any other space action sequence you've seen on the screen before. In the third year of the show, it remains essential television, even if it is getting a little bit creaky with these same characters. It's just inexplicable, Simon. It bothers me so much. But look, if you haven't blasted off with the show, you really are missing out. Like, even though I've got some issues with this season, it's still really great TV.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you've rabbited on about this one for a long, long time. Anyone who's a regular Screen Watcher listener will know how much I love the first season and haven't got around to the rest of it yet, and you love all of it. It's interesting to hear that this one comes up a little short on the Barrett scale of For All Mankind. Yeah, it is strange that they would stick with all the same characters. Is Joel Kinnaman still in there?
Oh yeah, they're like all the characters you want are still here.
Yeah.
And the problem is that you want them, but just because you want something doesn't mean that's what the show should be giving you.
Yeah.
The show should be saying that, hey, look, Joel Kinnaman, he's been a part of it. And there's no reason that Joel Kinnaman can't appear within the season. Like, maybe we just need to see him as a retired astronaut doing something. And I will say, of the returning characters, he's the one that makes the most sense coming back. So he's the one that's piloting the more corporately orientated trip to Mars.
Mm-hmm.
But by and large, like, that kind of makes sense because I'd understand why. And I don't want to tip the hat a little bit of what's going on with that storyline specifically, but him as a figurehead makes sense to bring back that character. But the rest of the characters, and there's one especially dopey plot from season 2, which, boy, they could have left that behind. I don't want to say what it is exactly, but anyone who watched that season certainly knows what I'm talking about. And they really double down on it and bring back the character involved in that in a really big way in this third season. And the show didn't need to do that. That's a character we could have definitely left behind.
You used an interesting term in your review that I've not heard before, that they need to sunset the characters. Did you make that up? That's very clever. I like that a lot. Is that a
phrase?
Is it? Oh, okay. I hadn't heard
it's a phrase. I don't want to take credit for it, but I will.
Very nice. All right, let's get on to my final.
So, I do want to say, if you've never watched the show, don't let my slightly sort of tepid response to the third season sort of wear you off. Because season 3, keep in mind, I watched episode 1, then I watched the next 7 episodes within a space of about 3 days afterwards. So it's certainly highly compelling TV, but critical hat on, there are some issues.
Okay, fair enough. Let's get on to my final review. It's the new Netflix movie starring Adam Sandler called Hustle.
Taking me to see basketball or bare knuckle boxing. We do everything. I'm Stanley Sugarman, scouting for the 76ers. So you're 22 years old because you can't be in the draft if you're over 22.
Yes, I'm 22 years old.
Who's this?
It's my son.
How old is he?
He's 10 years old.
Okay.
You can't see it from the video, but the guy talking is quite a bit older than 20 years old, and his son is also quite a bit older than 20 years old.
It's a terrific opening to the film. Adam Sandler finds a winning balance between his comedy sports guy bit and the dramatic leading man potential he displayed in Uncut Gems with this new Netflix movie. He plays aging NBA talent scout Stan Sugarman, a 30-year veteran of chasing leads to sign basketball's next big thing. His mentor, Philadelphia 76ers owner Rex Merrick, played on screen by the legend Robert Duvall. Great to see him back in a movie. He upped Stanley to assistant coach for his dedicated service over the years, but when ownership shifts to the son, Vin, played by Ben Foster, old conflicts see Stan punted back into the scouting game with the added pressure of finding that championship-winning rookie every club yearns for. Stan may have found his next NBA great in the housing projects of Spain, a natural talent called Bo Cruz, played by Juanco Herman Gomez, a real-life Utah Jazz recruit and a member of the Spanish national team. He's a true wild card with a history and a temper to match, but together and with a little help from a cast drafted from the NBA ranks and featuring names like Seth Curry and Trae Young, Stan and Bo can build a partnership that ought to take them to the top of the toughest basketball league in the world. Director Jeremiah Zagar and his writer Taylor Matern and Will Fetters do exactly what they need to do to turn the standard sports drama into the crowd pleaser they deliver. Take a couple of down on their luck outsiders, have them set goals for themselves that'll make them strive to be better, and punch out an ending that ensures they deliver above and beyond their new self-belief. The director and his excellent cinematographer, Zach Mulligan, give the gameplay some super immersive energy, while support players like Queen Latifah as Stan's supportive wife and ex-Saturday Night Live player Heidi Gardner as the more likable Merrick offspring, they bring the right pitch to their roles as well. It's all about Sandler, though. who's in every scene and who flushes out depth and character in his sort of shuffling, shrugging character, like he was born into the part. There's a little bit of Walter Matthau's exasperation with life and a little bit of Jack Lemmon's heartbreaking desperation in Sandler's performance. He probably pulls up just short of pulling a Burgess Meredith. And by that I'm referring to the classic trainer Mickey from the Rocky films. The temptation must have been strong though, and they are shooting on the streets of Philly after all. While the narrative has that faint whiff of seen it beforeness about it, Hustle fits in alongside such hoop classics as Hoosiers and Coach Carter as simply structured stories that find greatness in fresh perspectives, honest emotions, great performances, and just boundless energy. So yeah, this is a pretty terrific film. If you're not an Adam Sandler fan or not a sports movie fan, this could be the Adam Sandler sports movie that'll change your mind.
I was really hoping when you were talking about Burgess Meredith that his performance involved a lot of whack, whack, whack. Sounds.
Well, there's a little bit of Sandler in that. So yeah, there's some of that in there, but no, he pulls up just shy of it. So I love this film. And it's, I didn't mention, but I will just briefly, that it features 2 or 3 of the best sports montage moments, training sequences that are just so integral to sports movies. But they bring something fresh and original and energetic to it that just made this a pleasure to watch.
It's going to have to take a lot to beat Major League 2, but that's just, you know, I guess that's one man's opinion. Simon, very briefly, I want to talk to you about the TV show Evil, because it's one of my favorite shows and it's back this week for a 3rd season. I've opted against playing a clip, and that's only because the trailers for the 3rd season are mostly just music with a little bit of sound in the background, which makes them look like foreign dramas, but they're not. They're very much English language. So they just don't really make for great podcast audio. However, here's the thing with season 3 of the show. I'm hesitant to review seasons of shows which are returning shows, because, you know, by this stage people know what the program is and it seems a little bit redundant. I'm only then talking to people who are already on board for the show.
Yeah.
And season 3 of the show, if you've watched seasons 1 and 2, you're probably going to come back for season 3. Like, it's so just this is, like, what's my review going to offer?
This is very different from For All Mankind, which seems to have taken a narrative direction that suggests there's something new about it. Whereas Evil is very much an episode, like an X-Files, like an episode to episode type show.
Yeah, so this is the thing. I'm hesitant to review shows like this, which are a bit more episodic. And generally, I don't even really do shows that do have an ongoing narrative thread. But I felt a bit more comfortable with For All Mankind because it is a fresh storyline. So like that's worthy of discussion to a certain point. It is a brand new take on the premise of the show with each season. But with the show, like essentially it's the same high quality program that we've seen in the previous 2 seasons. And I guess I maybe just wanted to flag the program for people who may not necessarily be that familiar with the show, because maybe you've done yourself a disservice by not watching it. And basically this is the show that I think should be the easiest sell in the history of television to be able to push it onto people. But it actually feels like pushing a boulder uphill to get people to even like sample the program. And I think the reason for that is one of a couple of things. One, it's not on Netflix. And it is so difficult, Simon, to get people to sample a program that isn't on Netflix. They have to open up a different app, heaven forbid, and press play on it. Like, it is such a chore to get people to watch something that isn't on Netflix.
So where do we find Evil? Where is it?
So Evil season 1 you can find on Stan and Paramount Plus, but seasons 2 and 3 are just on Paramount Plus.
Okay, so that solves that problem.
Which brings us to the other thing, which is so few people have Paramount Plus.
That's another problem.
But then the third thing is it's actually partly to do with the setting of the program. So the premise of the series, and you mentioned the key word a moment ago, it's basically just the X-Files, except instead of the X-Files being about 2 agents from the FBI, these are 3 detectives who are sent out by the church to explore weird phenomena. And the church aspect of it, I think, is what actually makes it a bit of a hard sell. But just keep in mind, so I wouldn't even say I'm agnostic at this point. I just don't give a shit about any of it. Like, I'm so far interested in religion, really, just in terms of my own personal involvement, that something like this, where it's like, oh, it's another religious drama. It's like, I've seen enough of that. I don't really need to see more. But this show, I think, actually has some interesting things to say about the nature of evil and how we think about evil within our own lives, as well as them using the church as a venue to go out and hunt monsters. Okay, so like there's definitely, I think, a very valid reason why you would have the church as the core component of this program. Also, don't be scared off by the fact that the characters are working out of a church, because while they're certainly priests and nuns, and one of the show's best characters is this like really interesting nun played by Andrea Martin, who people would know from SCTV back in the day, as well as making a bunch of great appearances on various TV shows in the last couple of years. But it's the show's basically from the viewpoint of one guy is we'll call him a trainee priest, but then the other two are like really just complete atheists who are there to debunk every situation they can come across. So if you're not really into the church aspect of it all, the show's got you covered. Like it's very much sort of coming from the viewpoint that you probably share yourself.
Yes.
But what I like about this show is that one, this is a horror program where the show is genuinely scary. There are creepy as episodes this time, and that I think about on a regular basis that just keep me up at night. There's one episode from last year, which is set in a floor in an apartment building that's in between floors.
Oh, wow.
And a character gets stuck in there and he doesn't have his mobile phone with him. And so what the hell do you do when you can't get out? Like it is deeply unnerving. At the same time, the show is also incredibly funny. Like it's laugh out loud funny regularly throughout the hour that you'll be watching. On top of that, it's sexy. There is palpable tension between two of these characters specifically. And my God, Simon, like I get hot under the collar watching it. It's like I've never seen TV like this before. And to see Katja Herbers, the female lead of the show, with a devil's like forked tongue in the most recent episode. Oh my God, Simon. I'm getting in touch with the vapors.
She is lovely. She is very compelling in the lead role. I'm a big fan of her, that's for sure.
Yeah, she's incredible. I mean, a very pretty lady, but also she's got great comedic timing. She's got great dramatic chops. Like she's the whole package, that lady. But then the final thing that I really like about it is that her character has, I think it's 4 daughters who are all pretty much the same character in that this group of girls who run around the house all talking to each other over the top of each other. I don't know what their individual names are because they are effectively one very loud character throughout the show. But these girls, they should be the most annoying thing about the program, but they're not. They're actually weirdly the most compelling part of the program because what the show is really about is looking at a lot of the issues that face modern day culture and society, like social media and technology and the way that it impinges upon our like day-to-day lives. But it sort of frames it around the idea of the horrors and scary aspects of all this technology being around 11-year-old girls. Like it's the most sort of scary thing in the world when you consider that like there'll be episodes where in the very first episode, not to give too much away, but there's one of the girls sits down to play an online game and she's like introduced to another girl who's also playing the game. And so it's like a shared online sort of experience where they can talk to each other. And the idea is that they share like their own sort of hopes and fears about the world and that sort of thing. But what's really happening is that the person that she's talking to is a much older person. Okay. There's more going on than that, but we'll just sort of leave it at that. But it's that sort of horror.
I get
place, and it should be just horrible to have to watch young girls in the same way that people are pissed off watching the Obi-Wan Kenobi show because there's a precocious young girl in it, but it's not that at all. Have you ever watched this?
I have. No, I've seen a big chunk of the first series. I haven't watched anything past the first series, but I've seen all but a couple of the first series episodes. Can I say, is there a little bit of a problem with the title? Is evil just too generic and too I guess on the nose to make it a big, broad, successful title, successful show?
Maybe. Look, I won't rule that out as a possibility. What I think is probably a bigger issue for it is that it started out as a CBS drama. And so everyone's given up on broadcast TVs as being any good. So the actual challenge of telling people to watch a broadcast network drama is just near impossible these days. But this show is one of the few that managed to hold up, much like The Good Wife, which is the show that the creators of the show worked on prior to this. That was also one of the last remaining good network dramas. But like, good luck trying to convince people that The Good Wife was any good because it's got the exact same problem. I feel like I'm pushing the same boulder. I pushed the boulder up the hill for The Good Wife and then got to the top of the mountain. I thought, well, here's where evil is. I can push it down the hill. But there's just another hill to get up.
You spend so much time boulder pushing. I've got to say, the industry thanks you for it, Dan. They really do. Is this the Kings? Are these the Kings that did this that we love?
Yeah. So Michelle and Robert King, who created The Good Wife and then The Good Fight and did shows like Brain Dead, like the other guys behind Evil as well. And if you come
why can't we get them on the podcast? Let's get them on the podcast for a chat because they've got to hear your enthusiasm. If they heard your enthusiasm, it would make their lives worthwhile.
Look, they know.
I'm going to hunt them down. My Lisa Eilbacher search has hit a bit of a brick wall. She's not answering my emails. So maybe we should go after the Kings.
Yeah, look, maybe.
Maybe.
Anyway, you know what they say, never meet your hero, Simon.
Maybe that's true. I do it every week staring at you, Dan. You're my hero for your enthusiasm each show for this selection of shows that nobody ever watches. Also in cinemas this week, it's okay. Also in cinemas this week, I do have to mention very quickly 2 new films from 2 of international cinema's biggest directors. British director Terence Davies has Benediction in cinemas. This is a biopic of a gentleman called Siegfried Sassoon, who was a decorated soldier, a critic of England's involvement in World War I. He became a poet, and through that, he sort of reconciled his homosexuality, his standing in society. Terence Davies digs deep into this guy's life, and he has produced one of his best films in a long time. And Asghar Farhadi, the Iranian director, has A Hero, a new film called A Hero, I should point out, in cinemas, in which the story of a young man who is trying to pay off a debt and gets bundled up against a whole lot of problems when he's released from prison. That makes that very hard to do. So Asghar Farhadi's A Hero and Terence Davies' Benediction also in cinemas in limited release this week.
Indeed. Simon, how about we move on to, there's a section we do in the middle of the podcast every week. It's called The Middle Bit. Let's give that a go. Now, Simon, in the spirit of keeping this as a brisk conversation, as I look at the 6% left on my device here.
Oh, really? We're at that point again, are we? You haven't recharged your batteries. All right, well, let's move it through then.
Okay, so Simon, he loves his dinosaurs, and the two of us got chatting off microphone about our favorite dinosaur movies and TV shows. And we thought, what the heck are we doing keeping this off the microphones? Let's bring this to the people. So Simon, I guess the premise of this is we've got, 6 different Jurassic Park movies right now. They've all got dinosaurs. They're the best known of the dinosaur movies. But are there other dinosaur movies and or TV shows that we think are worthy of consideration?
Yes, I think there are. And I've got a handful of movies here. I haven't weighed in on the TV side of things. That's kind of your gig. But I can, well, maybe I have with a couple of these actually. The best dinosaur movies often create stories and create characters with the dinosaurs, as well as showing them in the most realistic of ways. Don Bluth's wonderful animated film, The Land Before Time, which gave birth to a whole lot of sequels, it still remains one of the most beloved. Yeah, exactly right. They were just huge on VHS back in the video store days. But The Land Before Time is very much a standalone storyline and a beautiful storyline that gives the characters real emotion, real life story, while also being beautifully animated. We cannot rule out the films of Willis O'Brien. He made 2 movies way back when. One was called The Lost World in 1922, and one was called King Kong. He did the stop motion work for both of those films, and both of those featured dinosaurs on screen for the very first time, and the stop motion animation is brilliant. I'm going to jump right forward to the mid-70s. There were 2 completely nutty films called The Land That Time Forgot with Doug McClure, in which a German U-boat sinks a British... you may remember this. It's got one of the wildest posters.
You may remember him from such films as.
Exactly right. And the submarine takes them to this unknown land called Caprona, where there's dinosaurs and Neanderthal characters. There's another one called Planet of the Dinosaurs, which is one of the great bad movies. This is about a spaceship that gets lost and is forced to land on an unknown planet, which looks an awful lot like Earth, but there's no trace of civilization, but there are dinosaurs, and they're bloodthirsty ones to boot. So that's one worth seeing for a bit of a giggle. One of the great international versions of the world of dinosaurs is a Czech film from 1955 called Journey to the Beginning of Time. It's about a young boy who finds a fossil and then imagines traveling through all the different eras of dinosaurs. And Karel Zeman, who directed it, was an early special effects whiz, and his representation of dinosaurs on screen is just brilliant. Most recently, David Attenborough's had Prehistoric Planet on Apple TV, which is definitely worth watching. Walking with Dinosaurs was an iconic series back in the late 90s, 6-part series that then led into another set of series called Sea Monsters, where they went under the water to look at dinosaurs under the ocean. There was also a film called Walking with Dinosaurs, which is often regarded very highly by those that know what dinosaurs look like. And if you want to see a really bad representation of dinosaurs, watch 10,000 BC, a 2008 movie, which is just garbage, that somehow manages to put the pyramids and dinosaurs and woolly mammoths all together and it's just awful, terrible, horrible film. I think it was a Roland Emmerich joint. So that's my very quick battery on the slide collection of dinosaur movies. What have you got?
Look, so movie-wise, like you tapped on most of them, but the one that you haven't got, and the inspiration for my Zoom background today, is The Valley of Gwangi.
I love it.
Yeah, Valley of Gwangi is just an incredible film. It's Ray Harryhausen, who is a stop-motion animation pioneer and all-round legend, just generally. Yeah. This film is from 1969, and it's the Wild West meets dinosaurs. So there's cowboys, there's horses, and there's a whole bunch of dinosaurs.
It's a hoot. A cowboy named Tuck Kirby, played by James Franciscus. I love The Valley of Gwangi.
And James Franciscus, people may know as being one of the humans from Beneath the Planet of the Apes, being his other most notable title. Yeah. It got me thinking about TV shows. Generally, live action shows with dinosaurs, pretty spotty. Basically, the technology isn't really quite there to bring them to the screen in the way that you sort of need it to be. So most of them are better left forgotten, but there's a couple of animated shows that I think are worthy of note, and only one that I really want to mention specifically. It's a little show called Dino Riders, which was a show from the 80s that was designed to sell some action figures to kids like myself. I don't think I've ever actually seen any of the action figures out in the wild, but I certainly saw a lot of Dino Riders cartoons, and I don't think there's that many episodes. I think maybe there's like 4 or 5 tapes that got sent out. It wasn't even on broadcast TV. It was like sold as VHS tapes with 1 or 2 episodes, like $9.95. But anyway, ask anyone of my vintage, and there was certainly no Dino Riders.
There, of course, there was that horrible, not animated, sort of live action puppet thing. Was it called Dinosaurs? Papa Mama. Was that what?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
The last episode of. Okay, so you can find that on Disney Plus right now.
Oh, wow.
Right for, I'm going to say 4 or 5 seasons, maybe even longer. But that show's notable because the very last episode of the show, Simon, deals with the extinction of dinosaurs. This is a kids-orientated sitcom. And then the last episode, everybody dies.
Well, see, now I've got to see that. I gave up on it because my sister loved it and I hated it. But maybe I really should revisit Dino. It was a Henson workshop thing, wasn't it, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, I think it might be right. All right, so lots of good dinosaur movies out there. I'm going to post this to our...
Also, sorry, if we're talking about dinosaurs as well, don't forget that the mother dinosaur is voiced by Jessica Walters from Arrested Development.
There you go. So there's ties there now that weren't apparent to me back when it first went to air. All right, well, I'll be watching that for sure. Do you remember there was a made-for-TV thing called Dinotopia? The books were very successful, and then they made sort of a couple of TV movies.
Yeah.
They came and went very quickly. So, but there's lots of interesting dinosaur stuff out there, more than Jurassic Park has to offer. There's been a part of big screen cinema and small screen adventure for many years. So send your favorite dinosaur shows to our Facebook page, where I'll put something up about this.
Yeah. What have we forgotten? Okay, Simon, I can see 3% on my battery, which means this podcast is very soon extinct. So very quickly, what have we got in terms of the week ahead?
Okay, movies debuting on streaming. Who We Are, A Chronicle of Racism in America. That comes to Netflix from June 13. A very potent documentary about exactly that, the Chronicle of Racism in America. And Halftime, coming to Netflix on June 14. That's the Jennifer Lopez film that opened the Tribeca Film Festival only a couple of weeks ago. It reflects on her career, her milestones, and all the wonderful stuff she's done while looking amazing at the same time.
Yeah. What else we got here? There's a special event playing at where have we got this, Simon?
This is happening in Queensland. This is for Queensland listeners. It's a free screening plus a Q&A. There's a short film premiering called Unseen. It's from a young director called Bonnie C. It's a creepy show about a couple's romantic getaway that turns nasty when evil manifests. Not a big deal, but I thought I'd let the Queensland population know that next Saturday on the 18th at 7:30 p.m, if you go to eventbrite.com.au and search Unseen Film Premiere, you'll be able to get along and see this for Nix, plus have a chat with the cast and crew. By all accounts, it's a pretty terrific little short film, has won awards at festivals around the world. It's probably worth catching up on.
And speaking of Queensland viewers, so that was happening on the Gold Coast, but in real Queensland, which is Brisbane, the Gallery of Modern Art have the continuation of the Art of the Heist film series that they're running.
Wow.
And throughout the week this week, so Sunday, 12th of June, which the podcast will be out before then, you can get along at 2 p.m. and see Heat, the 1995 Michael Mann classic, played as a 4K digital restoration, which I think is pretty cool. On Wednesday night, the 15th of June, you'll be able to see Malcolm, the Australian film, as a 35mm print. On Wednesday night at 7:45, you're going to find Logan Lucky being played, the Steven Soderbergh film.
Terrific film.
And then also playing on my birthday, you got Dog Day Afternoon, which I'm thinking about getting along to. So we'll see if my evening gets me there or not. But you know, what a special little birthday treat that would be.
That's a great line.
So that's playing 8:45. Sorry, 10 past 8 on Friday, the 17th of June. So yeah, that's all very exciting. And then I think the next day they've got, oh gosh, what's the name of that Michael Caine heist movie, The Italian Job?
Italian Job, yeah.
Yeah.
Famous with the minis.
Yeah. Now the film they don't have playing as part of it is a film called Heist, which is this really good David Mamet film from about 2004.
Yeah, Danny DeVito's, yeah.
But yep, it is playing now on Netflix. So if you've not seen that film before, well worth a look. I think it's a corker of a film, that one.
Kick us off this week in history, Dan Barrett. What happened on June 12, 1981?
Oh gosh, it's almost like you knew that my screen was on a different screen. Here we go. This week in history, we've got Steven Spielberg. He had this film called Raiders of the Lost Ark. You may have heard of it.
I know of it. Charles Jenkins, a man we all know, he demonstrated the first transmission of synchronized pictures and sound, or as we would come to know it, television, on June 13, 1925.
June 14, 2015, Jurassic World made $500 million worldwide on its opening weekend.
Extraordinary. And on June 15, in 1878, the world's first moving pictures were caught on camera using 12 cameras, each taking one photo frame each. It was used to determine if all four hooves leave the ground when a horse is running. Isn't that remarkable? And the answer is, go to Google. I don't know. No, I don't think they do. I think 1 foot is always on the ground.
We're about to move into the birthday segment, which Simon has already organized who is going to say what. And it seems like he's keeping away from two of my great loves in life, but let's see how this goes.
No, not happy birthday. No, not that. Please, no, not happy birthday.
On June 12, 1967, the lovely Frances O'Connor from the Australian film Love and Other Catastrophes and Spielberg's AI, she was born.
I love Frances O'Connor
so much.
Really?
I didn't know you did. I didn't think you'd have any. Oh, wow, it's interesting.
Love and Other Catastrophes, not available anywhere.
No, I know.
You cannot find that film. It's very frustrating. June 13, 1981, Chris Evans, who was Captain America, and he was also Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four.
June 14, 1968, the lovely Yasmin Bleeth from One Life to Live, and she of the red one piece in Baywatch, she was born.
You love Yasmin Bleeth.
Do you really?
June 18.
You're joking, aren't you? You're kidding.
How dare you? June 18, 1955. Sorry, June 16, 1955. Laurie Metcalf, who I do love from Roseanne and The Dropout and Lady Bird and every other great thing she's been in.
Yeah, she's wonderful. All right, that brings us to the end as the battery surges towards 0%. I'm Simon Foster. I'm on the Twitter at SimonRFoster1. Read my words over at screen-space.net. Visit the Screen Watching Facebook page for all sorts of things and our YouTube channel where there's lots of new uncut trailers and fresh interviews most weeks.
My iPad Pro is the 1%. Thank you for listening to Screen Watching. My name is Dan Barrett. You can find me on Twitter at the Dan Barrett. Start your day with my free newsletter. It's called Always Be Watching. It's located at alwaysbewatching.com. It's got the big stories in TV, streaming, and film. And on Fridays, you got the Always Be Streaming newsletter, which recounts the big shows that launch that very week. And if you enjoy this podcast, follow Screen Watching via your favorite podcast app. Load it up now. Hit the follow button.
If we had prepared this more succinctly, we would have had Julie Cruz playing us out. The actress and singer who passed away this week was integral to the Twin Peaks experience, her song Falling. So very sad that Julie Cruz has passed away. R.I.P. Julie Cruz. And Dan Barrett, thanks again for a terrific podcast.
Look, it's been an absolute treat. It really has. Anyway, Simon, we'll be back next week. We're going to talk more screen things. And quietly, I don't know what I'm going to discuss next week because we've kind of reached this point now where all the big TV shows are kind of out there for Emmy consideration. And now it's kind of a little bit tumbleweedy, but I'm going to dig out some really interesting things that people may have missed over the last couple of weeks, if not months, maybe.
You can start doing TikTok videos.
Yeah, I need more things in my time, Simon. Like, I'm not stretched enough at the moment.
Bye, mate. Bye-bye.
See you, Simon.